Scott, and thanks for joining us again today for another episode of the RockLove Magazine Podcast, where we celebrate the zine that ran between 1995 and 2001, the music of the era, the music of all eras, actually, as you've seen after all this time, recounting lists of our favorite things, talking about our favorite shows we've gone to. I've replayed for you a bunch of interviews from the past that we did back then, and now we are mixing some live new interviews in, as you've seen the last several weeks. And today I have a very special guest with me. Thank God he's here in Vegas. Welcome. Is it hot enough for you here, Larry?
It's fine. I don't mind the heat.
Oh, okay, good.
It's good. It's good.
So Larry Mitchell is a Grammy Award-winning producer, guitarist, songwriter. He's an amazing talent. If you don't know about him, we're going to introduce you to somebody that you should get to know, both as a personality and as a musician. He's had quite a remarkable story to tell. And so I'm so glad to have you here. So let me start with the first thing I always ask everybody is, what do you recall the first live show you ever attended being?
I think the first live show, I was probably 9 years old or 8 years old on a block party, one block over. And after I had learned how to play a little bit of a song. And that was a moment for me. And then my mom took me to see Teddy Pendergrass, and I got to meet Robert Wawa LeGrand, and he gave me a couple of little lessons and stuff like that. I was the kid that was, as all the ladies were going crazy over Teddy Pendergrass, the band at the end, the band walked right by. It was in the round at Westbury Music Fair, so the band walked off the stage and walked by to their dressing, the green room, I guess. And I just got up and followed, and nobody stopped me. So it was kind of an all-black band, and here's a little black kid. They didn't stop me from walking back there. And I remember going up to Robert LeGrand and asking him questions about his guitar playing. And he started answering, and he goes, "Wait, who are you here with?" And I said, "Oh, my mom." He goes, "Which one's your mom?" I go, "Oh, no, she's outside. She was outside looking for me." And he goes, "Boy, go out there and get your mom." So that was cool. And then another moment that really changed things for me was high school. In high school, there was a band in my homeroom. At the time, I think the name was The Cheats, and the guitar player's mom worked at Nassau Coliseum. I grew up in New York, Brooklyn, Queens, and then I hung out in the 5 towns of Long Island. And he had tickets to see a band called Van Halen on their first. It was '79. It was their first headlining tour, and asked if I wanted to go, and I'm like, sure. My first rock concert.
Nice.
That was eye-opening.
A couple of good experiences there.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about growing up. You said you're from New York. Tell me about growing up. What was your household like? When did you get the music bug? Let's give us a little bit of all that.
It was just me and my mom, and then my grandmother lived across one next building over. And it was, my mom says I used to grab the broom and strum it when Elvis would come on. Then I had a toy drum set, which she promptly threw out the window, third-story window.
Oh, how did that go over?
I was playing when she asked me to not play.
There you go.
And then I get that, and I had a toy guitar before that as well. That sealed the whole guitar thing. I have a drum set now. She can't lift it.
She can't get
lift
it.
At 85, she can't lift it.
Okay, so, and this is at what age is this?
I started really playing guitar at 9.
Really? So what does that mean, playing guitar at 9? Is that just playing around, or like are you serious, like I want to learn this? Like what's the comprehension like at 9 years old?
I don't think there was a plan. It was I always had it in my hands. Anybody I see playing guitar, like Robert Wawa LeGrand, or anybody, if I walked by someone that had a guitar and they were playing, I asked questions. I asked a question. And I think that developed into something that I still do occasionally, which is when someone's doing something interesting, I ask them to show me one thing. And back then it was really just show me one thing. So I learned a lot of stuff out of order. I'm self-taught, community taught. So I learned everything out of order. So I would go, hey, can you show me one thing? You show me a chord or a lick, not what to do with it, but just I knew this and I knew that. And later on, reading the back of Guitar World and Guitar Player First magazine, where they'd have the theory page and stuff like that, I would learn a little bit more. And I joined bands. You learn a lot by playing with other people. So I always had a guitar in my hand.
What about theory? Does that matter? Does that become important?
It
Do you learn
became
it?
more important later on.
How so?
When I started producing, it really became important. I worked on string. I love string arrangements and stuff. So I'd work on string parts, and then I would hire a string player to come in and play it. And they go, "That's not possible." I'm like, "What? Why not?" and then I learned a lot more. And then I'm very fortunate. I've produced an artist named Dawn Avery in her Native American singer-songwriter records, but she's also in the classical world, has classical records. So I'd be like, "Oh, I want to put a string quartet here." Dawn, what would a string quartet? Her name was Dawn Avery. Her name is Dawn Avery. What would a string quartet do here? And she goes, "You mean this?" I go, "Nah." And she goes, "What about this?" And I go, "Yeah, that's great." And then she would build upon it and stuff like that. So,
Wow.
And
Okay, so-
explain it to me.
So what are the you have a guitar, thank goodness. So what are the first things you're learning to play?
Donna Summer, Love to Love You, Baby.
Is it simple? Is it a little more complex?
It was more bass lines. I don't even remember.
Like I mean, that's as a fan, as somebody who's not a musician, these things sound simple, but they're not. I imagine.
No, nothing simple at first.
So is it whatever you're hearing on the radio?
I was trying to figure songs out on the radio, and then there were people that I'd see people in high school that would be playing stuff. In high school, I carried a guitar with me all the time. And then we had a couple of people in high school that were like big on jazz, some on rock, some on other stuff. And I remember in Far Rockaway High School, we had 60 kids in the music class, and Mr. Ruff was our music teacher. And I thought I was going to learn how to learn theory, and I was going to learn how to read and stuff like that. And then at the beginning of the year, he's like, "All right, who plays guitar?" And you raise your hand. And he goes, "Who wants to play guitar?" Go, "All right, so you're going to teach them." And I'm like, "Whoa, no, that's not what I wanted." But it's what happened, and it was cool. It was actually a good learning career experience, because later on I ended up teaching, and I teach now. But the beginning, high school was the beginning of that.
So, and what are you giving up? What's the commitment? This is all the time? You're giving up?
I didn't learn.
I learned sports and other social activities. And
no,
whatnot,
I wasn't good. I wasn't good at sports, especially because I grew up with asthma, bronchitis, chronic bronchitis, and asthma. So that's also how I ended up staying in the house most of the time playing
guitar. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
On my block, sometimes I would. I grew up with my friend David Braffman, and he was great at all sports. So I would play with him until I couldn't play anymore and stuff like that.
What kind of music is influencing you as you're learning along with people like Donna Summer?
In the beginning, it was all like R&B and funk and Parliament Funkadelic, Teddy Pendergrass stuff. There was a band called Brass Construction that rehearsed next door, so that was kind of cool, in a basement next door. Not sure how or why that happened, but that's the band that was there. And then later on, I joined that band, The Cheats. I don't remember what their name was before that, in high school or right out of high school. And then out of high school, I was also in a Rush tribute band.
Nice.
Which was odd, because it was like, all right, this is a whole different thing. And then back then, the quickest way to not have women come to your show was to play a set of Rush music. I love Rush, but it was like, so I convinced the band to do trio stuff. So we'd do like the Police songs by the Police, songs by Triumph. And there was a local band on Long Island called Zebra.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I remember.
Yep. And so we would do, Tell Me What You Want by Zebra, and I can't remember the name, by Triumph. And a lot of Police songs, which like you play a bunch of Rush songs, and it's a bunch of dudes out there. It's great, maybe occasional woman, and then you play a Police song, and all of a sudden it's like, where did all these women come from? They weren't in the club. Were they driving by, heard a Police song, and stopped? What happened?
So when you're a young man trying to reproduce these things, are you able to get to a point where you can reproduce them exactly, or are you sometimes equipment limited with and you see the nuances of what the professionals are doing? Or
I think I was less concerned about the equipment and more concerned about actually playing the part right.
Okay.
So there was always somebody that figured out, like, as for Van Halen, and I grew up in groups of 10 guitar players. Always, there was like 10 guitar players in this area, and then later on, I was hanging out with 10 guitar players in this area, and so forth. And one of those friends later on was a guy named John Levin, and John's in Dokken now. He's been in Dokken for a long time. I've known John since he was 16 and still in high school. And John could figure out anything. I mean, he knew all the Van Halen stuff, note for note, the Yngwie, all the Dokken stuff. He knew at 16. You know, he was so John was like that. My friend Jeff Dahl later on and played with Brian Ferry. In fact, he toured Brian Ferry same year I did Tracy Chapman. But Jeff was the first person to get me into delays, and he had a stereo rig in his apartment, which was like, what's that? You know. With Jeff took me down a journey of sound textures and delays and tones and stuff like that. Steve Stevens was also the local guitar hero in Far Rockaway from Billy Idol's band.
Yep.
And he lives here in town as well.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
And Steve is the extra person that turned me on to Nag's Guitarist. Thank you, Steve. But you know, Steve, when your local guitar hero takes you on a sonic journey, you follow.
Right.
You go, all right. Well, how do you get that sound? And later on, I did get more concerned with sounds, but in the early days of trying to recreate other people's playing, it was trying to figure out what they were playing, and that was it. You sought out the people that had great ears and figured stuff out, and a lot of stuff you just had to try and figure out yourself.
Right.
You know.
So I bounce around a lot, as you'll see. I've got a linear and I bounce around. But so over the decades, you've become a music educator as well, right? And you do seminars and teachings and go to colleges and whatnot. So, what do you say to young people, to the budding Claptons and Van Halens that just want, because they all want to be, Eddie Van Halen tomorrow, but without an understanding of what really goes into it.
That's a tricky question. I never discourage anyone from doing this as a profession if they want to do it, but I don't encourage people to do it as a profession. I think everyone should play. That's the first thing. Play from the heart, love it. And if you decide you want to do it as a career, that's a whole nother set of skills.
But what about what about along those lines, the development of the brain and of the learning skills that music provides one? It's similar that gave you what you couldn't do with sports, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I say. I encourage people. Everyone should play. So it's just as far as doing it as a career, that's a whole different thing. Totally unrelated thing. I know great players who would never do this as a career. I know amazing players that don't do it professionally, don't even go out and play on the weekends and stuff like that, but they play and they're just brilliant. But it's just it's a whole nother set of skills, social skills, economic skills, has very little to do with actually playing. But playing, everyone should play an instrument. It's soothing, it brings peace. I tell my friends who used to play for years that are caught up in, just family life, financial life, or whatever, said, make sure you play every day, even 5 minutes, because it's something they've been doing the longest in their lives, and it should bring a center of peace to them. And they agree. Some do it, some don't, but they agree that, yes, they're some of their best moments are when they're just sitting and playing guitar. But for whatever reason, you get locked into I can't take that 5-10 minutes because I have to do this, I have to do that, which causes more stress.
But it's so healthy, and that's why it's so distressing too, as we see the state of music education programs, and they're getting dropped, and there's not enough of them, or having funding issues or whatnot.
Yep, I'm on the board of an organization called Guitars in the Classroom, based out of San Diego. That does San Diego and LA unified, as well as other spots around the country. And it's helping with putting music back in schools in lots of different ways. But as far as education in music, I think we're at an interesting point, especially in colleges, where they have to worry about teaching people recording. That's what I taught in the college. I taught the College Santa Fe, New Mexico for a while. I taught recording techniques and production and stuff like that. That was also the time when there were more professional studios. There aren't cities with lots of professional studios anymore. There's still some Nashville, there's still LA, New York. There's probably some here, but there's not anywhere the amount there used to be. There's a lot of home studios that way outnumber that. But again, not everybody wants to or is cut out to engineer their own stuff. And then some people, it's like a blessing to I can record my stuff myself and work on it. But they're teaching people things that And I think in society in general, where you had AI coming out, colleges have an issue where they're teaching people stuff that there might not be a job for later on.
It's a problem.
So that's an interesting thing. But yeah, I enjoy teaching. I enjoy doing the workshops and stuff like that on tones, and I try and do different things.
So So what range of things have you taught?
I do a lot of tone workshops on building
Like
textures.
give us a few examples there.
I do stuff like combining it with different building textures, different types of reverbs. So still reverse in there. I do a thing which I call living reverb. So the reverb is moving. We're not in stereo right now, but it's actually moving from side to side. And the same thing with just building tones and textures on. Just stacking effects. I've loved effects for many years. I'm a big Edge fan. Andy Summers from The Police, and lots of effects and stuff like that. So, and Steve Stevens.
So these are more complex things and more advanced things that people get taught later on in the learning process? Or?
In my findings, a lot of people never get taught even the effect order. Like where do you place things?
So you just learn what you learn when you learn it?
Yeah, but in general, a lot of times people will come with a pedal board and go, "Why is it in this configuration?" Oh, I thought that's the way it goes. And there's no wrong way or right way, but there's a right way to get certain results if they're looking for certain results. When I meet someone that's truly on a path to creativity, I try not to stifle that. You wouldn't want to stifle Les Paul when he was trying to figure out certain things. You wouldn't want to stifle Jimi Hendrix when he was messing with effects. The same thing with any of the modern players that, Eddie Van Halen, to lots of people that play proper, played completely wrong. It's Hendrix, his thumbs were over the fretboard. Eddie's wrist is in a very bizarre position and stuff like that. But if you stifle that, you don't get who they became.
Right.
So I meet someone like that. I'm like, all right, that's how you, okay.
So how do we work with that?
Yeah.
Right, and keep you who you are. So,
Yes.
excuse me. So at a certain point now, going back to your career, you become a professional musician. Tell me about the nuances and difficulties of dealing with the music business, and do you get burned at all in early days and contract bullshit, and what's it like for a young musician entering this business, which is this big ball of wax?
I'm so far removed from the actual music business side of things today, so I
But what
don't
about
know.
back then?
Back then, you got burned. Period. I've been sued by my management. I've had 5 record deals that didn't pay me anything. Fortunately, I got a licensing deal in Japan, which told me about licensing. I don't trust people in the music business.
Contracts you couldn't get out of, or anything
I had
like that?
no.
You didn't have. Okay.
Contracts mean crap. They mean crap. You got it's how big your lawyer is.
Right.
Yeah, contracts don't mean anything.
Okay, so then what? So then again, as a young man, and then after you learn and you get burned from this a little bit, like what do you learn? How do you go about then watching out for yourself and advocating for yourself?
I don't have management. I don't have a booking agent. I don't know if you follow me on social media, but I'm constantly working.
So that's all you? Mostly?
I got friends that help.
Right.
Mainly me. I probably could be making more money and doing other things, but I'm working, happy. I'm meeting wonderful people. I'm playing guitar. People want to, at 60, could be 62 this year. I'm playing and people want to hear me. So I'm always grateful for that.
You should want to hear him when you hear his stuff.
Yeah, so. I had my first record company. I know from a friend who worked in an office that the first record sold 45,000 copies in the tri-state area alone. Never saw a penny from that. Had a booking agent in New Jersey who booked me on a tour and took money as a deposit so that we could start the tour, but never told me that. So I brought a band on the road. First show was in Memphis, Tennessee, and a lady hands me $50. I go, "What's this?" She goes, "Oh, I had wired the rest of the money to your booking agent. He said you needed it to start up." And I'm like, "No." And she showed me all the paperwork. And I was like, "Wow, couldn't find them, couldn't get them on it." And then we found out every show after that was exactly the same.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't trust people anymore in the music business.
So so the internet's made it easier. Has it also made it harder in some respects?
Um,
You have to worry about people stealing your shit, and
yeah, people are gonna steal your stuff anyway.
they're going to steal your stuff anyway. So
It's just, yeah, I hate to be so negative.
no, but there are the realities of the music industry and how it's changed, and that's one of the things I always like to examine. You know,
Yeah, it's a funky business because people will be people, and it's a lot easier. I
But
think.
the good part about it is somebody like yourself who excels. So the internet allows everybody to put everything out there, right? But most of it is crap. So the cream rises to the top. So people like yourself that are the cream, you'll get through to us, with enough effort, I guess.
Yeah, I think if you're trying to do pop music, or everything that and by pop I mean like commercial pop, country pop, hip hop and rap pop, heavy metal pop, whatever the most in thing at the time, that's harder. If you do niche music, one of the beautiful things is that you get a letter from someone on the other side of the world, an email or message, go, "I just discovered your music and it's great." And, and they belong to a club of people. So they're sending it out to, just like we did in the old days.
Yep.
If a new artist came out, if you and your friends liked a certain type of music and the new artist came out, you go, the red vinyl and this came out and there's like 25 copies at this store. Go get it now.
Look for it on Columbia House.
Look for your Columbia House. So the beautiful thing is if it's a niche thing, there are groups of people that listen to certain music. When somebody in that group finds it, they turn everybody onto it. And people from all over the world can find you by just clicking on a video or listening to, someone suggests something and then they go, "I'm curious," and they can click on it and they see and hear it instantly. Whereas, I don't know how we did it back then. And,
we waited for Tuesdays for record release day, basically.
But how does someone on the other side of the world, because records weren't released at the same time.
Right.
And then you'd have to mail a copy to someone.
Or what we did, a lot of times the Japanese copy came out first, so you'd spend like $60 to get if it was somebody you wanted bad enough.
Right, yeah. So. But I think nowadays it's easier to find people. The hard side, like I said, if you're in the top of the top version of whatever style of music you're into, there's so many people trying to do that same thing that you get lost in the shuffle really easy.
Yep.
Where if you're doing niche stuff, a lot of people doing niche music is a bit unique. And so you stand out a little bit more.
Let's talk about playing the instrument a little bit. So is it harder being an instrumentalist when there's vocals versus when there's not? Does it matter if there's a vocalist singing or if it's just an instrumental?
I think it's always harder if you're just instrumental versus vocals.
It's harder just instrumental. Okay,
yeah,
how come?
I think it is. I don't sing. I wish I did, but yeah, I think it's easier. I think people take a chance on someone that has vocals in it before they take a chance on instrumental, unless you have something else going for you. You have a history or a name in instrumental stuff, but in general, just getting booked in a lot of them. A few years ago, I moved to the South. I ended up with a trio, and for the first time, we traveled around the South, and it was interesting getting booked in that we're actually trying to play places where my name wasn't known at all, and general response is, "Well, instrumental, I don't know if a bunch of people are going to watch instrumental for an hour and a half and 2 hours," and then most of those shows turned out to be fine, but occasionally you turn into people like, "Well, where's the vocalist?" and stuff like that. So. these days I do more of playing with places where people already know me and want to hear me do stuff.
And then what about in studio versus on stage? How do you have approach differently? Do you have you just performing the music the same, or?
With any music, I come from, I grew up in the 70s, 80s era where there was a bit of jamming going on. So there's live and there's the studio. I try and capture, for my stuff, a little bit of the live improv element in some of the recordings. But live, things go a little bit longer, and especially with the band, if I'm playing with a band and we've been playing for a while, things tend to groove a little bit more differently and change. Things pop up,
Right, but you're also stuck with whatever you're performing on stage at that moment. Where in the studio, you can change it, but do you try and avoid maybe in the studio, try and in the first couple of takes get that live feeling out of it, or do you do whatever it takes to nail it, however many takes it takes?
No, I haven't done a record. I haven't done a record of mine in many years where I'm playing everything live. We do with a rhythm section. Most of the stuff my records in the last few years, as well as most of the records I produce a lot of other artists. I am playing all the instruments. So trying to put in that live improv feel means that I have to go backwards sometimes.
Right.
Play the instrument and do that, and then play the next instrument reacting off of that. But I started doing this series. I did one in January that's coming out, and I just did one in Australia 2 weeks ago in Whammy-Ran, Australia, where I got together with a rhythm section in a studio. They learned 3 of my songs, and we also had another friend come in and do a complete improv jam, and we did it one take, mistakes or not.
Wow, nice.
And it's a video on YouTube. I don't know if I'm putting things out like that, but I'm trying to do that a little bit more this year. So it's just going with a rhythm section in the studio so you can capture it nicely and then also video it. And it's just, we go do it, and how it happens, it happens. We learn the song, and you play it.
You got involved in native music for a while, so tell us about Robert Mirabal, and this is where the Grammy comes in and everything, and tell us about meeting him and how that all came about. And you, I've heard you talk about playing and learning to appreciate all these alternative types of venues and whatnot. So give us a little bit of that.
Well, the Mirabal thing. In my life, there's a bit of foreshadowing. There's a lot. I had lived in San Diego, California, from 95 to 2000. Moved back 2000 to 2001 to Brooklyn, where I was working for a production company, and that was very much pop, very pop music. They had lots of success, but I was one of the side producers to do stuff. And then was a part of the, I don't even go into that. But right before I decided I wanted to get out of New York again, and wasn't sure where I was going to go. I might have moved to the South where my mom is, which is where I'm at now, helping my mom out. But back then she didn't need help. I was just thinking about moving there. I didn't want to stay in New York. I didn't want to go back to San Diego at that time. And right, like 2 weeks before I had to go, I was about to leave. I got a call from an artist that I got a call from a friend that said this woman's band had left, and they ended up in a very famous band. Her band ended up playing in a very, very famous band, replacing some of the original members. But she had this big gig at a powwow in Minnesota at Fort Snelling. Is that the park? I can't think of the name of the park.
I'm not sure.
And I forgot about the powwow part. And they go, "Can you do it a gig?" And then we can leave right away. You got to learn the songs, one rehearsal, and then listen to everything on the plane. So I get on the plane, I listen to it, and I go to EK. "Hey EK, what's this gig we're doing?" She goes, "It's a powwow." And I'm like, "What do you mean powwow?" And she goes, "It's gonna be 10,000 Native Americans there." I'm like, in my head, I'm going, there are no more Native Americans. And that's where we grew up in New York in the school system. Native Americans were a long time ago. And I've always been into Native American jewelry and stuff like that. So we land, we get there, and we do this gig. It's a powwow. There's thousands and thousands of Native Americans there. I had some great moments, met some people. was very curious about a lot of stuff. Cut back, a couple weeks later, I get a call from an artist that I produced, Eileen Meyer, when I was in San Diego. She had moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and she wanted to do a second record. She wanted to do it with me. Couldn't afford to stop working and move to Brooklyn for 3 to 6 months to do the record. I said, I'll come to Santa Fe and do the record. So I packed up stuff, and I was leaving out of New York anyway. I go to Santa Fe, doing the record. It was right after 9/11. I mean, I was supposed to fly on 9/11. Didn't get out of New York. Not anywhere near those planes. I was flying out a totally different airport.
But still, it's flying on that day.
It's crazy. Get to New Mexico. Loved the sky. Loved the air. Loved everything. The city welcomed me in too many ways that would just be too long to explain here. But it's really just when things are like, hey, come on in, you kind of go, oh, this is easy. This is cool. I should do this. And one of the things that happened was first met the cellist for Robert Mirabal, Michael Cott, and then got asked to do a fundraiser show that Robert was the headliner on, not knowing that he just changed his whole band and was looking for a guitar player. So I did that, and I did that show. I played some of my music. Robert played his stuff. Met lots of cool people, and then later on, 3 weeks later, Robert's manager called and said, Robert wanted to know if you'd be interested in filling in as guitar player until he found a permanent guitar player. And the first couple of shows of that were amazing, and I got introduced to more powwows, more reservations, totally different world of this is cool. Produce also at the same time when I came there, I got asked to produce a song for this Navajo woman, Natasha Terry. And we did a song called Lightning Woman. It was great. And she's singing Navajo in it a little bit. And then later on, someone hired me to produce a whole record. So now, again, the city is embracing me. I got work. I wasn't trying to get more work. Right. I got a band. Wasn't trying to get in a band. And then Robert had a record label, was in a record, signed to a record label. And they asked me to produce a series of Robert's flute records. And Robert didn't want to do it under his name, so we did it under the name Johnny Whitehorse. And the second one was nominated for Grammy, which we didn't think we were going to win, but it won. The third one was nominated for Grammy that didn't win. I did Shelley Morningsong's record. I did a couple of really cool Native American records that did really cool things in the Native American world. I also met Native American poet Joy Harjo, who became the first 3-time United States Poet Laureate back in 2020.
Yep.
And she's just, Joy Harjo is just amazing.
Is there anything different about Native American music that you have to learn and that you had to open your world up to?
Well, so as a producer, my job is to find interesting things. And so Robert's normal music is kind of like a cross between the Doors and U2.
Okay.
With Native American subject matter and language in it. Shelley Morningsong was kind of Native folk pop with Native American subject matter and vocals and some flute in it, but it's still underlying, it's still kind of folk pop.
Okay.
Joy Harjo had come from her previous bands, were doing kind of a reggae vibe, and now she's doing more of a jazz thing. And at the time was trying to figure out how to frame that all in the style of music the undertone style of music that they were doing. Yeah. And I grew up on pop music.
Right.
And so I was trying to always trying to keep things in a certain way.
Right. So are you trying to influence them and move them a little bit towards that direction based on just what your soul is,
Yeah. It's just to not kill their vibe, but also bring more of that out, but also frame it in a certain, all right, so are you doing the reggae thing? We can't go full reggae because that's not what the music is. But we have to bring elements into it. If you think about the Police, they were a punk rock band that had reggae influences and stuff. They weren't full reggae and they weren't necessarily full punk. And just lots of bands, you bring in elements into it, but you keep it, you're as a producer, you're a liaison between the record, the artist that has a creative vision and a record company that has a marketing vision. So you have to keep and be true to both of those and trying to keep things on path.
So I know we don't do this for the accolades, but tell me about the rush of winning a Grammy anyways. And then does it change anything afterwards?
Yes, it's changed a lot of stuff. The rush was, again, we didn't think we were going to win. And we had a show the night before at the Hollywood, Florida Hard Rock. And it was a big show and stuff like that. And we were standing on stage at soundcheck going, we should probably go to the Grammys. And it was too late. Because it was the 50th anniversary. There was no extra tickets. Robert had a pass, but he needed to confirm a while ago, and that was still in Taos, and we were in Florida. And to go home and get it, we didn't know where he made it. So we flew home. I got in bed to rest in the middle of the day, and that category was announced. They only do the major categories at night. That was announced in the daytime, and you're sitting there going, oh, I think we just, and then the phone just started ringing. And it was like, okay. And then we said, if we get nominated again, we would go. And we didn't. We got nominated for the third record. We didn't go. We didn't win, but we should have gone then. If I get nominated again, I'm definitely going. Nothing can stop me from going this time.
Yeah, no. Like I said, even though you're not out there doing it for that reason,
right.
It's nice to be recognized, especially at the pinnacle of what we do.
Yeah, it was never on my radar. Now, at the same time, when I lived in Santa Fe, New Mexico for 10 years, I think I won 26 New Mexico Music Awards for world music, pop music, adult contemporary Christian, contemporary gospel R&B, instrumental, children's record. I think I have one.
And a lot of those are areas where we hear about now that those are the areas that are making money in the industry still.
Those are ridiculous.
All right, let's have some fun and talk celebrities, and let me throw some names out at you. Tell me, why you love them, what you know about them, or maybe examples of why you love them musically. Andy Timmons, let's start with.
Who?
Andy Timmons.
Oh, Andy Timmons is great. I've known Andy probably 40 years. He's one of my top 2 living guitar players, and he's just a great guy. Ridiculous player, just ridiculous tone and playing and phrasing and everything, but just a straight up great guy. Without a guitar in his hand, he's still a great guy.
When we say tone and phrasing and whatnot, what is that like? What's the difference?
Phrasing is like when you meet someone that speaks eloquently,
okay,
versus someone that just speaks.
And even the same
great.
thing instrumentally. You mean. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, instrumentally or vocally. Just. I guess I can't do it like Andy, but as opposed to someone I've, there's. Maybe it's too early for me playing. But phrasing, Eric Clapton, phrasing. B.B. King, he hit you at one note, and you kind of go, "Oh, all right."
Okay, right. So the style
trucks.
and the thing, the kind of the guitar oeuvre that you own and personally and whatnot.
How you communicate.
Right. Okay, so here's one of my 6 degrees of separation stories. I've got a couple for you, actually.
Okay.
So when I was a teenager, my job was I was the stock boy at the fur department at Jordan Marsh Furs in Boston. Okay. And I worked with this woman who had been a salesperson for like 40 years there. Her name was Hazel Consalvi, and she had a daughter by the name of Dale, who then became the Playboy Bunny of the Year in Boston, who then went to L.A. to see Hugh Hefner, and that didn't work out, but she ended up with Frank Zappa, and then became the girl who's singing on Joe's Garage and whatnot, and met Terry Bozzio and fell in love with Terry Bozzio and became Mrs. Dale Bozzio, and they became missing persons. Cool. And anyways, that's my long way of saying, tell me about Steve Vai.
Okay. That was interesting around the way you get to it.
I told you. 6 degrees.
So Steve, I was a fan of. Again, he was a Long Island guitar hero. Not Far Rockaway like Steve Stevens, but he was the Long Island. It's like, oh, he's the guy that went out and made it. And then became a guitar player in Alcatraz. He replaced Yngwie. That was interesting. It's like, wow. And then the thing that really set it off was David Lee Roth. That I saw maybe 8 or 9 of those shows. And I've seen Steve play also at the Right Track Inn in Long Island, Freeport, Long Island, where there's only 200 people there tops. But watching him on that was just mind blowing. And then I had gone and seen him play a few times. I was an Ibanez artist for 26 years. So I've opened for Steve at different Ibanez events. We were on stage a couple of times together. In 2008, I think it was 2008, I went to Nagoya, Japan, and did the Ibanez 100th anniversary party. And the end jam was 3 drummers. It was Pat Torpy from Mr. Big, Jeff Bowders, who was playing with Paul Gilbert at the time, and Jeff is a great drummer. He's been in my band as well. I love Jeff's playing. And Simon Phillips, which is Simon Phillips.
Yep.
And so then there were 5 guitar players: Marty Freeman, Andy Timmons, Paul Gilbert, Steve Vai, and myself. And they said, so at the end, we're doing a song, and the jam is going. First of all, it was because of Simon. He said nobody played rhythm guitar except Larry. So I had to play rhythm guitar, and we changed drummers every time a guitar player changed. And so you want to be like grooving, and then every drummer has a slight different groove, but you need to be dead on it when Simon comes on. But I'm doing this, and Marty Freeman does a solo, and then Andy Timmons does a solo. No, Andy does a solo first. And then you go, oh, wow, that was great. That was great. And Marty's doing a solo. It's really cool. And Paul Gilbert's doing a solo, and he's winding it up. And Paul is just ridiculous. And then Steve Vai does a solo. You go, oh, my God. And then you go, oh, wait, it's my turn. And the first round of solos, Steve is yelling positive affirmations in my ear. And you want to go, please stop. Because it's Steve Vai, even though he's saying encouraging things, it's really hard to concentrate. Right, and then I finish the solo, and it gets handed back to Andy Timmons, and I'm like going, who made this order? But I got to know Steve more. We actually hung out a lot in Nagoya in the backstage area talking. The first time we ever just talked about housing. I don't have kids, but we talked about kids. His son Julian was there. We talked about guitar. We talked about music. We talked about life. And it was really, really nice. It was just unprovoked, just, hey, somehow it was just Steve and I, Andy and Paul and Marty were jamming in another room and stuff like that. And we just kept talking about stuff. And later on, Steve invited me to a show in Birmingham. He heard I was coming to see the band. And he said, why don't you bring a guitar and come play? And that was the first time jam with Steve and his band at a Steve concert. And it was just had a blast. Steve enjoyed it. We did good, got funky. And at that point, whenever I was around, Steve would ask me to come up and play and jam, and it would be just funky. He'd be like, do something funky. And this day, most of the times, when he, even if he says, we're going to do this song, I get on stage, he goes, all right, Larry, just start something funky, start a groove, and we just do it.
Well, he came coming out of Frank's orbit, there's no better germinating ground to learn to do things differently than in that orbit,
Steve is great.
And what is it about, I know you didn't play with Frank or whatnot, but what is it about Zappa and his professionalism, expectations, proficiency, that everybody who came out of that orbit is such an amazing musician?
Well, he only worked with great players to start with. I think because talking with Steve and also listening to Steve's interviews and stuff like that, Frank taught him about the business side as well, and music stuff, and no compromising and doing things your way. And I think Steve's done things that way. Some of that's probably rubbed off on me a little bit as well. It's empowering because the music business has a window for most people. If you're doing this, you look this, and you're of this age. And it has a quick way, if you follow only that and you don't get to where they want you to get to, that has a quick way of leading to depression, I think. But if you do things on your own terms,
Like with anything in life, really.
anything in life. But I think there's a thing in music where not everybody, lots of people want to be famous or they want to do things for the wrong reasons. And those are great if they happen.
That's kind of what I was asking earlier about young people wanting to become guitarists for the wrong reason. I want to become Eddie Van Halen as opposed to becoming a guitarist.
You can't become Eddie Van Halen.
Right.
You just can't. You can't even become what Eddie did. You have to. Eddie wasn't trying to be what Eddie Van Halen
and that's
became.
The thing you
I
have
don't
to
think
learn.
He was doing his thing. That's why Eddie taught me also. He had a smile on his face when he did it because he was happy playing and doing his stuff, and it's just like he was self-contained in doing his thing, and it almost feels like if you didn't like it, he didn't really care. He was still doing it, and he was doing it well, and people were like, all right, that's cool. I want to be like that guy, and then you become bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, I tell people to do what you do, love it, and if you love it, you're going to try and do it as best as possible, and hopefully,
and what follows.
What follows. Hopefully, when you're doing something that you love, people see that you love it. They take the chance to listen to it. I think the hardest challenge right now is just getting people to listen to your stuff. Right. There's so much. I mean, it's like 17,000, 18,000 songs a day being released.
Yep.
So
it's cutting through the noise, like with everything.
Yes,
so.
Cutting through the noise.
Okay, here's my next 6 degrees of separation. In 1997, the publicist, whoever called me, we were based out of the Bay Area, and they said, Billy Corgan, you guys do a lot of alternative stuff in the magazine, and Billy Corgan is producing Rick Ocasek's next album. And would you like to come and interview him and spend some time with him? And I said, yeah, I'd love to. Can I, like what we're doing, can I do something in person and blah, 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 and bring a photographer? And, we were a little tiny zine, right? So the lady goes to me, yeah, but we're going to want the cover for that. So obviously I agreed.
She did her job.
And I spent a couple of hours with Rick Ocasek having lunch and chatting. But 5 years before this, you worked with him and tell us about
one of the nicest people in the world.
Which I agree. I found that I didn't know him, and he was so lovely over for a couple-hour lunch. So yeah.
Absolutely one of the nicest people. I was walking through China Club on a weekend because I missed my train to on the Long Island Railroad back home. So I had a 2-hour window, and I went. I went to the China Club. Back in New York in those days, everybody I knew went to the China Club on Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday, really. Occasionally you did a gig on a Saturday, but it was a whole different crowd on the weekends. And I went and I was walking through, not recognizing. In fact, the door people didn't know me, but the manager was there, and they said, "Oh yeah, let him in." And I was just stopping to see if anybody I knew was playing or hanging there. And Nile Rodgers yells my name out, and I had met Nile and known him and jammed with him and stuff like that. And Nile
wrote
was one
every great soul and R&B song. I mean, pretty much
in the '90s. He was on 8. He produced 8 of the top 10 records on the charts at the same time. And he's Larry. And I was like, Nile, hey, what are you doing? And he goes, I don't know anybody here. I said, I don't know anybody here either. And he goes, I said, we're hanging out for a while. There was one other cool thing that happened that I got to introduce Nile to someone that was there that was a bit of a celebrity, a freak chance that I knew. But he goes, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? I said, anything you want me to do. He goes, I'm working on this Rick Ocasek song, and I would love for you to do a solo on it. I'm like, I'm there. And it ended up happening on, that was a Saturday, and it ended up happening on a Monday. And I met Rick, went in, did the whole bit, and Rick said, I'd like to get together with you. So he invited me to his house and gave me great business advice, but also asked me to play on the rest of the record. And we did some shows, some jamming and shows and stuff like that. It was
Can you pull that solo out of your head and do a couple seconds of it?
No. That was
30 years ago, 35 years ago.
35 years ago.
So along those lines, though, you've written a lot of songs. You have to play a lot of songs. So you've got to relearn stuff if you're going to come and do it, and you haven't done it for a while, right?
Constantly. I show up at a show where there's an artist that I produce multiple records, and they go, hey, we're doing this song. You want to play in it? And I'm like, I remember the lyrics. I remember the drum parts. I have the guitar parts. I don't remember. Sometimes when when I'm doing production stuff, again, I'm playing most of the instruments, usually whatever the artist doesn't play, especially guitar. I am removed from, a lot of times I have to go back outside to being the guitar player that when someone hires me to play guitar on something. I do alternate tuning sometimes to get whatever. I remember, Jimmy Page they talked about guitar, being studio guitar player, and they would take strings off the guitar, or they would, get the nut ring or tune certain strings an odd way so that if you accidentally hit it, it's going to ring with the chord. So I do stuff like that. I use capos. Sometimes I used to videotape the guitar part just so I remember it. Somewhere there's a hard drive that has like the Pro Tools session along with mixes and then video files of like what the guitar parts are and stuff like that. Just because I was like, I would try and relearn stuff and go, that's not possible. How is that possible? Because strings were tuned differently to get it to work.
Okay, so this isn't, for lack of a better term, this isn't a druggy thing because I know you're a teetotaler. So you just, people with a large catalog have to relearn stuff if you haven't played it for a while, I guess.
There's an artist, Don.
We just sit there as fans and go, oh, well, you wrote song X, Y, and Z, then it's just ingrained in your soul and you know it for the rest of your life.
No, I've been at singers. I do a lot of singer-songwriters festivals, and I've watched singer-songwriters get on. They go, someone goes, oh yeah, I do that song. I go, I think, and you see them struggling. They put the capo in the wrong spot, and they get, oh no, the capo goes here because they got a bridge that's about to come up that they can't sing to, or they just like, I don't know the words, and then someone in the audience yells out the words or whatever, and they go, oh yeah, something like that. It's not easy, and when you go through a lot of stuff. Randy Driscoll is an artist I produced since 2000, and several of her records, and I'm just trying to remember parts because I play with her still, and she goes, oh, I'm going to do this song, and I'm like, all right, I've been playing with you over and over for years, and I don't remember ever doing that song. She goes, I haven't done it. And then she'll play it different than the record, too. And because she's like, oh, you know what? It's not in this key. It's in that key. And I'm like, I don't remember the so.
Okay, so we're constantly learning, I guess. As a singer.
Side note, when I did the Rick Ocasek record, we were supposed to do a big tour, and Rick was on the set of Her Alibi because his wife, Paulina, was doing that movie. So the tour got delayed. And in the meantime, Billy Squier asked me to tour with him.
Which I was just going to say is my next 6 degrees of separation. I'm from Newton, Massachusetts. And
they both are, right?
Yeah, and the next town over is Wellesley, which is where Billy Squier is from. So we watched as he exploded on the scene. He's about our age. So tell me about how that all came about in your work with him.
In '89, someone recommended me to audition for Billy Squier, and I did. Went through several auditions, and the last one, Billy was there, and we jammed, which was great. And then he just hung out, and he sat on the floor and said, just jam with the band. I want to see you jam with the band. Jam with the band, had a great time. Personality-wise, even though we all got along, I didn't fit in the band. So they didn't take me out on the road. Now, they took Jimmy Crespo, who was from Vegas, right?
Yep.
Billy and I remained friends. He actually came. There was a talk for a minute of him singing on my first record, which when you put, for a vocalist to sing on someone's record is a whole different thing than a guitar player to play on someone's record. Just record company wise, it's a whole business thing that's different. So it didn't happen, but he came to my CD release party. Billy was cool. And then I didn't see him for a while. Went and saw the show they did in New York when they played. And King's X was opening.
Oh, wow.
King's
Nice.
X, yeah. So again, I go to the China Club because I miss a train, but it wasn't on the weekend night. I show up and I'm walking around, and I see 4 guys: Bobby Chenard, who's passed, the drummer, Mark Clark, the bass player, Alan St. John, 3 of the guys, and they all live at the opposite ends of the tri-state area. So I'm like, what are you guys all doing here? I said, oh, Billy's here too. I'm like, oh, yeah, he's in the VIP room. So Billy comes out. He's happy to see me. He goes, come on, sit down. And so what they were watching a guitar player that they were about to take. They had auditioned. They were about to take on the tour in 91. And I'm happy. My record had come out in 90. I played on Rick Ocasek's record in 91. It's about to come out. I'm about to do a tour with Rick. And Billy turned to me and he goes, no, you're coming on the road with us. I'm like, what? No, I mean, great, but thank you, but I have a tour coming up. And he goes, yeah, it's gonna be great. We can hang out and play guitar together. And We got this great new band on Capitol, because Billy was on Capitol, called Maggie's Dream. All my friends. They're all my friends.
Wow.
They're opening, and I'm like, oh, crap. I said, I will call Rick's manager tomorrow and see if how long is the tour? So the tour's going to be 5 weeks. It turned out to be 5.5, 6 months. So Rick's manager's like, yeah, Rick's not doing anything right now. We're going to delay the record coming out, blah, blah, blah. So I go on the road with Billy. After the first show, I get a call from Rick's manager that, hey, we're doing a video for the first single, Rockaway, from Far Rockaway. And it's got Rockaway Playland in the background. And Rick wants you you have a big solo in the song. Rick wants you to be in the video. I have to now ask Billy if I can leave the tour for a couple of days, go do a video, and then come back. Didn't go over so great, but I did it, and it was just awesome. But Billy is a great guitar player. I don't think he gets enough credit for his lead playing, especially his rhythm playing. It's just
that's because he's such a presence on stage. So it's sometimes hard people who have big auras on stage.
And his voice.
It's hard to look past.
He's got a great voice. So people are like, oh, yeah, he must be just a singer-songwriter guitar. Billy's not a light guitar player. And also, I wish that I was into vintage guitars then, because Billy he took out a Nocaster.
Wow.
59 Les Paul Jr., 101 P90, 2 gold tops, 57 gold tops, one with P90s and one with humbuckers from a burst. And then he'd end the show with a 58 Sunburst Les Paul, which is like, it's just great. And a friend of mine, Ira Blanco, came out to a rehearsal, and he was like, actually going, Billy, you can't take those in a row. And Billy's like, why not? And he goes, because these guitars are valued at, and he goes, no, this is what I have. Why would I take something different? Great. Good philosophy.
Yep. Hey, I saw, before I go on your Instagram, as you travel and whatnot, you're always stopping at factories and whatnot and looking at instruments and gear and what's it. So tell me about that just still always gets you. And, it's a combination of, I imagine, the fun as well as discovering new things. And what is it about just always being a part of what you're seeing out there development-wise?
First, it's the love of guitar. I love guitar. And one of my big things is for guitar players, try and fall back in love with guitar. If you've been playing for a long time, you get jaded in certain things. But you remember that you got to go back to that time when you would open the case every day. Yeah. You go, that's my guitar. You need to go back to that. Second, I cannot work on guitars. I've been banned from working on my guitars from every tech that I know, because I can break a guitar instantly. I can burn my hands with solder. I just do everything wrong. So seeing how they're made and seeing the craftsmanship, being in a wood shop is something that's so foreign to me, but I just love it. And I just like to see how they're made. And then I just love guitar. So I just was at a music store in Cave Creek, Arizona, a couple of days ago. Beautiful shop. Just a beautiful collection of guitars. They didn't have any nags there, but they had a beautiful collection of guitars. And so just whoever does the curating of those guitars that for sale has a great eye for, these days, most real high-end shops don't just take whatever the company, they go, no, I want this, I want that. And a lot of those, like they had a bunch of Martins. They actually went to Martin, they picked the woods out. That's become a thing where high-end, they pick the woods out and they pick the colors. My customers are like this kind of thing. So they know what the customers want. They know what they want in their shop, hanging and looking. Unless it's a used piece that they trade. Do
you know if, like in other areas, like we've talked about, like with education, if within the instrument manufacturing industry, are they having trouble recruiting and teaching young people so that there's another generation, so that none of these are dying crafts that aren't so I see this recurring thing on Instagram that Zildjian there's only like 8 people that know how to make these cymbals in the world, and then what happens? So
yeah, I don't know. I think last year I was at Roberto Vin School of Luthery in Phoenix.
Okay.
My friend Muriel Anderson was playing, and I ended up sitting in with her on one of the days as well. And they were celebrating 50 years of being in business. And they send a lot of their graduates to PRS and Collings and Taylor and Martin and stuff like that, a lot of companies. So there is a I think there's a small group of people that are teaching that,
Making an effort.
how to make it.
Because they're screwed without it. So.
And I think there's always work in repair. Guitars are going to be around for a while, old guitars, new guitars. And I think during COVID, every repair shop in the country, at least, was like overworked because people were bringing in their guitars to get fixed finally. So I think there's always going to be that. I don't know about making guitars. I really don't know.
But even with repairs, people need to be taught to do it. So
yeah. So there's that. Like there are schools at Roberto Venn. I think a big part of the class is not just how to build, but how to repair.
Right.
Because you can spend months building a guitar, especially on a small scale level, building a guitar, but you can't. It's hard to sustain that, and you can sell one every X amount of time. But repair business has,
since you mentioned it, before I go on to Tracy, so what did you do during COVID? What did you have to adjust? How did you perform? What did you do those couple of years?
It was interesting. I ended up kept working in an odd way, but the year before I had been home 60 days. That's it.
Wow.
I was traveling a lot. And then I'm fortunate that a few years before COVID, I started doing this Tuesday Night Live stream. And so I had a core group of people that watched every Tuesday night. It's a good time. Most people aren't going out and doing stuff. And during COVID, I created a second night. And to make it different, it's all acoustic. So Tuesday nights are my live stream, electric, rock, fusion, bluesy rock, whatever you want to call it, ethereal stuff. And Sundays are just acoustic guitar, unless I'm traveling. Like, I don't have an acoustic guitar with me. If I can't borrow one, a nylon string, then I'm going to have to do it on electric. But because I was so used to doing things with multiple cameras, at that point, COVID, I was doing 3 to 7 camera angles.
Wow.
And live and running it myself. It's kind of weird.
Hold on while I switch shots.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And actually, the company that I was I would make during COVID, I was making suggestions. Me and another friend of mine, David Walker, were making suggestions to this company, and they actually implemented these. It's like, it's kind of hard to do playing guitar to change angles, and they put in auto switching, they put in a bunch of things. So I was fortunate I had some knowledge in doing that I did a live stream for the Kennedy Center, for Auburn University, for the state of New Mexico, for a couple of other things. They said, "Oh, you have, these people were trying to figure out how to do live streaming."
Yep, and how to get creative.
And I had sometimes I'm lucky, and my show comes off like a professionally produced TV show, and some weeks it's like, I knock the camera over, the battery, the iPhone battery dies. Right. I pick up a guitar, I break a string, whatever. I had some really funny moments on there live, but sometimes it looks like a professionally done show. And so I got paid to do those. And then I even went out to Bentonville, Arkansas, and there was a brand new theater that opened in January, I believe, January of 2020. And it was just a high dollar theater, spared no expense. And someone saw one of my live streams, even though I wasn't controlling the live stream for them. They brought me and an artist that I produced, Katie Martin, out to Arkansas. We had to get tested. This wasn't 2020. This was 2021, I believe. It was 20. I don't remember which year it was. But at the time, you had to get tested. I don't think there was a vaccine then, but you had to get tested every day before you got in the building. And they bought a crazy amount of live stream and cameras and stuff like that. And we did their first live stream concert. They sold tickets. It was limited tickets because they had people X amount of space apart, but it was a live stream. And that was because even though I wasn't controlling this, it was a multi-camera shoot. They'd seen me do a live stream, so they thought about me doing the live stream there. So I ended up working. I kept working. I didn't travel anywhere near as much.
Right, of course.
We did one for Atlantic Center for the Arts. So yeah, places I drove to there. Katie and I, we got tested and we drove there. Everybody get tested before that. So I kept working a bit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, how about Tracy Chapman? Tell us your involvement with her, somebody that has a warm spot in so many of our hearts.
Tracy's great. Tracy, I've said this many times before. I'll say it again. The best consistent acoustic guitar player I've ever played.
Really?
She sounds like I'd imagine Commander Data from Star Trek playing, not in a robotic field, but it's like the everything just felt and sounded the same every time she played it. And you kind of go, all right, that's a little frightening and a little intimidating too, because I am not that, you know.
Her stuff's a little more complicated than it sounds, I imagine. Or is it just the precision
some stuff is
that
complicated?
it requires?
Just it's precision. Whether
right.
you're playing two chords, it's just the same, and it's just like that's well rehearsed. I don't know how she does it, but that whole thing came about again because of Rick Ocasek. Right? Yeah, because of Rick Ocasek.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody else. But anyway, Rick's manager had an assistant, and I'm drawing a blank. Forgive me, I'm drawing a blank on his name. Really great guy in 91. And then in 92, he left and was Tracy's manager.
Okay.
Right? I can't remember.
Okay, well.
But Elliot Roberts was the manager, and he actually Elliot might have been, Elliot might have been involved in both. But so I got a call from Elliot saying, "Hey, this is Elliot Roberts, and we got your name from so and so from the Rick Ocasek camp." And Rick might have been recommending me anyway as well. And he said, "I'm in New York, and." He said, we're considering you to do a world tour with Tracy Chapman. Now, me not being an acoustic guitar player, laughed, chuckled, and I was like, yeah, who is this? And he goes, no, this is Elliot Roberts. You know, I'm in New York. If you want to meet, come on down. I immediately hopped on the train, went to New York, and I met him. He goes, all right, so I'm here with Neil Young. Please don't, I'll introduce you to Neil, but please don't,
don't
continue chatting with Neil. Now, again, I have no faith in that I'm actually going to tour with Tracy Chapman because I am Mr. Rock and Roller in New York. So Neil holds a place in my heart, not just for music, but because he saved Lionel trains.
Yep.
And I'm a train guy. Yep. And I was like, sorry, Neil, nice to meet you. Thank you so much for saving. I can see Elliot going, oh, God. And I'm talking about Lionel trains and the whole bit. And he's, and after a while, I'll leave him alone. So he's watching some conference. And actually, I think it was some sort of music thing that I probably should have been paying attention to. But here I am talking to Neil about trains and listening to him, Elliot talk about going on the road with Tracy Chapman. And I'm like, I didn't believe it till it got real, like real. And it wasn't, I won't say it was a totally different kind of tour for me. It was a tour, it was different in a lot of ways, but at that point in 1988, I had done my first tour with Miguel Bosé. Okay. Big, very big Italian.
We're going to talk about him in a second.
So Miguel, it was like the average audience in Spain was like 20,000 to 40,000, and up. So Miguel, I was used to that, but there was a revelation in playing with Miguel that I was playing in New York in 9 different bands, playing everything from country to folk pop to rock, playing in situations where you needed to be Nile Rodgers for 2 songs, Vince Gill for 3, and then Eddie Van Halen for 1, kind of situations.
So then you're more prepared to work with Tracy than you think you are.
Than I thought I was, yes. And it was really cool. And Lee Sklar was a bass player.
Wow, nice.
For whole first 4 or 5 months of that tour. So it was like, and learning just, Lee.
And what about since it was acoustic and you're not normally an acoustic player, what about the crunch of what you had to learn and how quickly and everything for that, or no?
Well, I prepared to do that and got there and did not know how great Tracy was on acoustic guitar. And also, I was not hired to play acoustic guitar.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I think I had an acoustic that I used maybe on 1 song, 2 songs. I got a Rude Awakening banjo for one song, which I had never played a banjo before. That was enlightening and blood drawing. But I was there to play electric guitar, and there's not a whole lot of electric guitar, but there's some, and it was cool.
All right, so tell us about Miguel Bosé and who he is and that experience. And as you said, this is where you're playing stadiums and whatnot.
Miguel Bosé, we had not known who he was or anything about him. Carmine Rojas, who used to live in Vegas, who was Rod Stewart's MD, Patti LaBelle's MD, David Bowie's musical director as well, and had been touring with everybody, was asked to put together a tour, an American touring band for Miguel Bosé. They were, I think, trying to break Miguel in America.
Okay.
And Carmine couldn't do it because he was going to do Rod Stewart. So he put together the band, and all the people that he would normally recommend or would use were out on the road already. So what I believe was he asked several friends guitar players, he went to some of the nightclubs that he knew people at and said, give me some names of drummers, bass players, and guitar players. And he said my name came up with everybody, which was great. I probably because I was in 9 different bands at the time, I was playing in a lot of places, and I talked to people sometimes, stuff like that. So went to the audition, and my friend Warren McRae was auditioning for bass at the time, which was funny because a few years before that, I had auditioned for a group that Warren was the MD, and he didn't pick us. He didn't pick me and my friend Tony on drums for a reason, but it was cool that like, oh yeah, I remember you. And he got the tour. Alan Childs is a friend of Carmine, got the tour on drums, and he played on the Glass Spider tour with David Bowie. Yep. And Alan lives here in Vegas. Yeah, all these Vegas things coming up.
Yep.
And they only picked 3 Americans. They had 2 Italian keyboard players, and then the rest of the band was from Spain or Italy. And it was great. We didn't know any of these songs. He was super huge. He still is. He's still touring. I think he toured in America last year in his, I want to say 70s. And his first single, I believe, came out when he was 12 years old. He is a bit of Spanish-Italian royalty. His mom was a famous Italian model. His father was famous Italian bullfighter. Mm-hmm. And Miguel was he was on a TV soap opera, and he's a movie star. And we even though we're playing in Italy in front of 10,000 people, and I had no idea how big Miguel was until we got to Spain, and there's reporters in the hotel lobby, and it's September, and we're walking down, kids are walking down the street with Miguel Bosé backpacks.
Wow.
And then we saw Eddie Murphy had come out, Coming to America had come out in Spain. Mm-hmm. And there was we passed by, me and my friend Warren, we passed by a movie theater, and there was like this big poster of Eddie Murphy in the garb for that, and a giant, more than twice the size poster of Miguel Bosé for a movie that was coming out with Miguel. And we're like, oh yeah, he's probably bigger here. Yeah. He's probably really big. And then the first show, I think, was the first show in Madrid was the Plaza de Toros Madrid, which I believe is 20,000 people. Huge. It was like, oh, it's very different here. It's very different.
And that's in those old places too, right?
Plaza de Toros, bullfighting ring.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Muse and at the Festival de Nîmes in France in this 2,000-year-old Coliseum. I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Yeah, seeing these places. So,
yeah. So when were you in Nîmes?
2003 or thereabouts.
Okay. Did you ever
about when Muse was huge? I mean, it was at the peak of their popularity.
Did you go to that outdoor amphitheater right there?
Yeah, well, it's in the center of town, like the Coliseum. So no, it was a Coliseum that holds 20,000 people in the middle of Nîmes.
They have another outdoor amphitheater.
Oh, okay.
It's right on the water. So I played there.
But it's
Tracy.
remarkable.
Yeah, it's great.
And that the town and the people, and you can see how everything revolved around these gathering spots in the old days. And people, you didn't leave your 50-mile radius or whatever.
Right. So, when I played with Miguel, I mean, the town shut down basically. Right. Everybody came, and then of course there would be like after we ate and we played, those shows don't start till 11 o'clock at night after everybody's eaten and digested. So 2 o'clock in the morning, I go, all right, so we're going to a castle, 2 hours away, just 2 hours away. And you get there, and then this food just keeps coming out. It's like, we ate, like, what's going on? But it was great. It was great.
That's
But yeah,
amazing.
some of the old places, stayed in castles,
Cool stuff. That's cool in Europe.
the
Yeah.
history.
Yep.
History.
That's what you don't get here. Okay, what about another one of my favorite people in show business is Sandra-Bernhard. What have you had to do with her?
I just played on that video, got to meet her, and do that video. The song's called Manic Superstar, and it's a take on manic depression. And she wanted a Hendrix dude. So before the dreads, I had a little bit of a fro, and she wanted, so they puffed out my fro. And it looks like I'm singing it. I am not the voice on that. There's a man singing in the end of it. That is not me. I am doing it in the video. But it was fun. It was really fun. Yeah.
All right, let's spend a few minutes on your solo career before I let you go.
Sure.
And so first, let's from a 30,000-foot level. How have you changed as a musician? When you look back at Larry Mitchell in 1990 versus the Light Within and Shadows of the Soul and one, like how has the musician changed, and what are you better at now? What do you do differently as you write these things?
I am better at going with the flow. I am better at listening to my gut and not listening to other people always. I am a better guitar player for sure. Just I've learned so many things, and I think my first record came out at 26. And at 26, one, you're always trying to get your best sexy on and have it on. Two, you feel like you have something to prove. I don't feel like I have anything to prove. I'm going to play. I'm going to be me. If you like it, that's wonderful. I appreciate that. If you don't, okay. There's millions of other guitar players you can enjoy. I'm pretty sure someone you will enjoy.
Are you more open-minded musically now than you were back then to ideas and new things, or you've always been that way? Or?
I think I've come back to it. I think I was open-minded to a lot of things, and I let people that were around me that were in a higher position musically, from record labels to management to all kinds of stuff, talk me into doing things a different way. And I mean, that's part of people's job. Like I said, when I'm producing, I try to remember not to put everybody into a small box. Again, if I see true creative artists, there are artists and there are musicians. And musicians, one thing, you can put them in a box for a little while and say, we should make a record like this, or we should do this. Artists, you need a very wide, flexible, bendable box, because they have a vision, and you have to help them bring that vision out of them instead of trying to force them into a vision. That's a crime if you do that. So for me, I let people talk me into certain ways. And I was actually just thinking about this not long ago, whereas I used to do these little sound things because I love effects. And my management would say, you can get 2 more songs in if you just don't do those things in the middle. And so I would do that. And now I'm back to full circle of putting things in the middle of shows, sound effects, because they're a breather and they help enhance, or they help paint a picture where the song is going. And oddly enough, companies pay me to do those things. When I demo their effects or stuff like that. And I wish I never stopped doing that back then. I did for a while. I stopped because of people, and then I stopped because it was no longer a natural thing. And I've just come back into that in the last 5 or 10 years, maybe.
That's interesting. And then you did a couple of great these acoustic escape albums. So what's the difference in the approach doing acoustic versus electric, and everything behind that?
So the Tracy Chapman tour taught me about really appreciating acoustic guitar. The acoustic record, the first one, came by accident. It kept me in the business. So at that point, in 95, I did not want to sign another record deal with anybody. Nobody was making records at homes, really. Most people weren't making records at home. Most people didn't have a home studio. Now we can make a record on our phones. And there was a gentleman at a publication that said he was a fan of mine, used to come to my shows, had left the magazine publishing business and worked for a record company, a major record company, and said he wanted to hear new stuff that I was doing. So I borrowed a 4-track, wrote some songs or recorded some songs in a 4-track. You know, I said, all I could do is this because I have no money. Nobody was hiring me. Everybody thought I was still on the road with Tracy, like 2 years after it was over. And because now you get off as you're on your way home, you pipe on social media, it's tour's over, it's great, so people know you're home. Back then you had to go out every night and call people every day. Hey, remember, I'm here, hire me. So anyway, he invited me to his office. I played him with stuff, and he proceeded to tell me I was 30 years old, and I played too cleanly, and I need to start thinking about other things in my career. And it was one of the most horrible things ever. But the good side, because you got to be able to pull good things from it, the good side didn't reveal itself till later. I was depressed about that. And then a friend of mine, Sam Raymond, was building a home studio because Sam had lots of money at the time. And one of his dreams was to get a lot of studio gear and then take it back to another country where he was going to go. And he said, here's the keys to my house. I leave every day at 10. My wife leaves around the same time. Go make a record. And I went in his basement and I stared at gear that I had never seen on that side of it before. I'd always been on the other side playing. Right. And I called every friend I called everybody. I mean, some of the biggest producers and engineers that I had met, and everybody. I don't know if people could hear the fragileness in my voice. They stopped, they took time, they said, what do you have? And I said, all right, try this, do this. How do you hook up a compressor? Well, you do this, and do that. Everybody worked. Some people came and played on it for free. I did not take into account that I didn't write anything worth recording. So I ended up with a badly recorded, badly produced, bad songs that had great players on it. A friend of mine came down to help me, and he goes, yeah, so why don't you practice on some of those acoustic songs you've been working on? I was living in Manhattan at the time in a tiny apartment, had an acoustic guitar, no amp, electric guitar, but no amp. Everything was in storage or at my mom's house in Queens. And so I ended up with a little sequencer, and I just wrote these little things on acoustic for the first time. And I programmed and sequenced, and that was way before I was leading up to this time. So when he said, why don't you practice on some of those acoustic things? So that's what I do. I would go down and practice on it. And he came back and he goes, yeah, this sounds good. Let me mix it for you. I'm like, why would you mix it? I'm not an acoustic player. I'm not going to do anything with these. He mixed it, sounded great, called me up. He goes, I'm at Master This. Eddie Vendette wants to master it. I'm like, I don't have any money for that. He goes, he wants to master it. So then I have a super high quality mastered cassette. And to make it even shorter, you ever have those moments where all you have to do is stay out of the way?
Right.
So again, I was not trying to make an acoustic record. I was trying to make an electric record. It came out horrible. In practicing to make the electric record better, I made this acoustic record in 2 weeks, literally. Had it mixed by a professional who mixes records for a living, mastered by another professional who masters some of the biggest records ever. And I have a cassette. I stop up at RockLove Magazine. Robert Dye's like, hey, aren't you recording? I'm like, I got an electric record in cassette here, and acoustic. Yeah, I got some acoustic songs. Give it to Robert on a Friday. Monday morning, he calls me up. He goes, you got artwork for this record? I'm like, what record? He goes, the acoustic record. It's great. I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure what I'm doing. He goes, oh, you got a great review. I'm like, how did I get a review? He goes, somebody came in back then. You came and dropped off your reviews, heard it playing it off, said, I'll let me review that. Came back with a glowing review. And he goes, we want to put it in this special issue that's coming out, and we need it artwork by Friday. I go, don't you guys have like a 3-month lead time? He goes, yeah, but this is a special issue. It's coming out, and we got space for it. So I had to make up my mind if I wanted to release it. And again, I have no money, and every step of the way, I needed artwork. I ran into a friend that I didn't know did artwork. She did the artwork. I had the photos.
Takes a village sometimes.
Every step of the way, he goes, if you're going to, if the article's coming out, you're going to need copies. I borrow money from my cousin and my godmother, and I needed artwork. You didn't have Photoshop. You needed actual artwork. And there's a woman that I met that had given me a birthday card, a handwritten coupon for free artwork. I called her up and goes, do you still do that? She goes, yeah, now I have a business with 45 employees. She did it. There was a guy that came from Japan, bought an early copy of the magazine, read the review on the flight back to Japan, called up Guitar World, how to get in touch with me. They put me in touch with them. I didn't know what music licensing was, but I remembered at a NAMM show before, I had met a woman and a group of people. She gave me a business card that she specialized in music licensing around the world. Didn't know what it was. Called her up. She goes, yeah, I can. She explained it to me. I can handle it. Just still friends with her today. She did not try and rip me off, like most people in the music business. Had a license deal that paid me more money than any of those 5 labels did. I'm going really fast because it's so long. Walking down the street on Broadway and 4th in front of Tower Records. Manager comes out, Larry, hey, what's going on? You got any new music? I said, I do, actually. It's different. Oh, yeah, cool. Who's the record company? Don't have a record company. Who's the distributor? Don't have a distribution. Goes, hold on. Goes inside, gives me a card, calls people. They're in Manhattan. When they distribute independent artists.
When things were great. Yeah,
when you get it, let me know. I'll order copies. We'll get you in. When I tell you, I didn't do anything. I personally put $350 of my own money over time into that record. 2 weeks to make. Had distribution. Had a licensing deal. Did an acoustic tour off of it. And a fragile state. It kept me in the music business.
Wow.
I did nothing. I walked down the street and people said, you need this. And it was like, okay. I was smart enough to go, okay, and not try and take control of it because literally I did nothing. I just was
just the whole thing from your starting off to not make an acoustic record to just letting it happen.
Yes.
Sometimes you just got to let life go the way it goes.
Go with the flow and not question. I was like, all right, I don't know how to do this, and it would just appear, and so you gotta have faith. So and then so at that point, I started putting an acoustic song on almost every record that I released after that, but it still had to fit. The record. I like records that tell a story.
Yep.
And
especially without vocals, it has to really
it has to take you on a journey.
Yep.
And which is why I missed albums. Where it did
same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
And so then. In 2020, I started working on. I was like, "Oh, this is a great time." I had no time the year before to work on records for myself, so I still was producing 2 other artists, but I was home alone doing it. And so I quickly started working on my stuff in between, and realized that these didn't belong on the same record. Light Within was the acoustic record, and it's full of hope and other stuff and light. And it won a Global Music Award too in 2020, 2021. I guess it won the award. And the electric record is called Shadows in the Soul, which I stole from George R. R. Martin, fellow Santa Fe. It's darker. I had a lot of friends that were going through a lot of stuff in 2020. And so I released those 2 records and stuff. But the acoustic record is one of the most beautiful things I think I've done for myself. And I've produced some really beautiful records for other people, but this one is just beautiful.
How are you as a producer? You've produced for others now, so how are you as a producer for others? What's your expectations like? Do you have a tolerance for any monkey business or bullshit in the studio? Do you expect people to come in ready to just lay the material down? Like what's Larry the producer like?
I'm open. It's usually just me and an artist.
Okay.
I have produced a couple of bands. I try not to do bands anymore. That's a whole. That's like a picture sitting at a Thanksgiving table with a dysfunctional
all
family.
The personalities involved. Yeah,
it's really hard. But working with a solo artist is really, it's intimate. You get to know a lot about people even if you're not trying. Sometimes you have to act as a counselor.
Yep.
But also trying to steer people into I believe when you're making a record, it's time to bring out of people stuff that they're really good at and strong with, but not have them work on stuff that they're not good at. Work on stuff that they might not think that they're good at, but they actually are. But now that's not a good time to work on their weaknesses. It's a good time to bring out their strengths and show them that what their strengths are, and help them with the confidence to try things that I know that they can do.
Help them discover things about themselves that they
Exactly.
didn't know, maybe.
And to figure out, and I think a dying art is album making. Not necessarily with a lot of artists. Again, there's musicians and artists. Artists always have that vision of like, oh, I want to make this. But trying to get them to understand song flow, what their strengths are, again, with the, where their voice lives, and we need to move the song to a different key because this is where your voice really lives. Yes, you can sing it fine in this key, but your voice does something extra in this key. And finding the tempos where their rhythm of their vocal sits really in a nice place. So working with artists is great. It's usually just me and the artist. Some people come in very prepared. Some people do not. Most people come in, oh yeah, I have 10, 15, 20 songs. And we get to song 8 and they go, none of what I have net left is as good as these others. So let me go back and rewrite. That used to be a frustrating part of like, oh yeah, we're going to get this done in like a month and a half. And they're like, oh yeah, I got 17 songs. It forced me to then go, all right, you want to do a record? That's great. Here's your guitar, here's your piano. Play me 10 songs without any production. Just you and me. It could be a heavy rock record. I want to hear the songs.
Are you laying down any expectations to people before you go into the studio with them? Like, here's how I work and here's what it's going to be like when we go in and I'm producing?
When I know that someone wants to do a record, what I try to do is get together with people and do 4-hour session first.
Okay.
In 4 hours, you learn how I work. And if that's going to work for you, I learn how you work, if that's going to work for me. And if not, then at that point, nobody owes anybody any money. We go have a cup of coffee and we remain friends, and I can recommend someone else that you might be better working with.
And what kinds of things would signal that you won't work well together?
I'm not a drinker. I don't mind if other people drink. I never did. But if you're in the studio constantly drinking and you're drunk, then we really can't. There's no, that doesn't work.
So for you, this is a place to work and lay tracks down, and you go party afterwards or beforehand.
Right. If you're nervous in the studio, that's great. If you want to have a drink later on at the end of the day, but I need you to somewhat be focused on some stuff. Not that you have to be focused everything, but that's not really a place to do it. And if you want to bring in tons of friends while we're working on the record, that doesn't work either.
That's a bad thing,
too. That's a distraction. That's where all kinds of that. All my studios have been in my home, too. So,
So you can control that a little bit. So, so how
drugs? It's not a good idea.
Yeah. Well, right. Anything that stunts the process.
Yeah.
What about with your own stuff? You're a band leader. So what would your bandmates say about you as a band leader?
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to ask some of them.
What would you like them to say?
I don't know. Everybody's different. Everybody thinks people think of them differently than they do.
What's your style when you get these guys together and you go, here's what we're going to do?
It'd be great if you learn the songs, really learn the songs. If you're going to tour with somebody, learn the songs. And then before you go and adapt things and change things, play it the way they're used to. Especially if you're going to tour as a sideman with singers, not all singers play an instrument. And so they rely on certain things in the song to know where they're at. Not all singers count. So the more you can make them feel comfortable, the better. Especially drummers. I don't know if a lot of drummers realize that yes, they're a timekeeper. Everyone should be keeping time, but sometimes singers need specific things in order to know where they are in the song. So if you go changing that drastically, they're lost. And if they get lost and they can fire you, they will fire you.
All right, and then lastly, tell me, there's the studio, right, where you have this controlled environment that you can control, but on stage, you've got us screaming at you how much we love you while you're playing, and all these wires and chords and technical stuff. So what are the complexities on stage of when something doesn't go right, when the monitor's not working properly? You know, like sometimes we'll see on TV people struggling with an ear monitor.
Yeah.
Or, you know, first of all, do you play to a stem or a click track or anything? Or?
Not when I'm playing with the trio,
Okay.
but I do solo shows where, you know, all the tracks are on my looper.
Okay.
So I have to be able to hear that.
So you have to be able to hear
there's
it.
no click track, but I need to hear
So
the track.
then what is it just a struggle when, you know, things like monitors and the things that you rely on for the show to carry out aren't working?
Sure. First, it's a lot of struggle sometimes. First thing is don't lose your composure. The audience has no idea most of the time. If you, everybody, when there's something goes wrong, 99% of the time, everyone feels bad and everyone is working to fix the problem. If you exacerbate the situation by yelling and screaming at people,
Temperamental artist, right?
temperamental, that helps nothing get done. And that may make people take longer. That may make people not want to help you when it goes wrong, especially because there's a good chance that it's something that you've done that's caused the problem.
Right.
And that could be simply something you physically do right there, or somehow you've changed things and now the parameters are changed and they're not prepared for that. And remember, a good sound engineer is there to not make you sound great always, but is really there in case stuff goes wrong.
Keep you from sounding bad.
Keep you from sounding bad, and to know how to troubleshoot. And you learn, there's things like when you can take a college course on live sound or sound engineering, you can take a course on live performance. Nothing substitutes hours and months and years of actually being on stage and knowing how to handle that. You've seen people where stuff goes wrong and they just talk about it and go, you know, it just reminds me of when I was playing, and they tell a story, and before you know it, everything's back to normal and you've just been entertained, and they're not crazed about it because they have trust and faith in their crew that's going to get the situation fixed.
Well, how often of an occurrence is it between the time like you do a sound check and everything's fine, and then when you come on for the show, something can randomly happen? Or?
Something can randomly happen. Yeah. Sometimes I've opened for people and they limit the opening act to a whole lot of things because they don't want the chance that anything you do is going to interfere with the main show that all these people came to see. And you have to understand that. I did a tour opening for Steve Vai. I basically called Steve up out of the blue and said, "Hey, you're playing Atlanta. I'd love to open that show in Atlanta, and maybe some other shows in the South." And Steve was like, "Well, that's a great idea, but we're not moving anything on stage. Everything's set and stuff like that." And I said, "Well, I could do it with 2 channels, 3 if you give me a microphone. I could do it without a band. There was no way to do it with a band, right?" Playback tracks, I'm just there to play, to meet a new audience. And he goes, "You make it compelling. That's great. Let me talk to the tour manager." Tour manager calls me up. He didn't know I knew Steve well. And he's like, "All right, so this is the deal. 1, you can't hang out and talk with Steve. You got to leave him alone." I was like, "All right." Doesn't know I know
Even though
Steve.
you know him.
Steve just called you and actually. 2, I understand you need just 2 channels, so that's how you're going to get 2 channels. Might not always have great monitors for you, stereo. I said, "That's okay." And you have 30 minutes from the time the door opens to get on stage with all your gear and off stage. So that includes bringing your gear on, plugging it in, taking it off. So the first show, I said, "No problem. Did you need monitors?" "I don't really need them, but sure. Okay, get the monitors." "You only need 2 channels?" "Yep," because my tracks go back into the fractal and come back out as one mix, pre-mixed. You don't have to do anything. Just bring me up, equal level, pan it left and right, and I'm set. Which was good because they only had 2 channels. And I had to use Steve's vocal mic line just to talk, I believe. But they only had 2 channels left. They would have had to either got a secondary mixer or unplug things in order to have me do that. And then, anyway, so I did it, and I was off in the 30 minutes. And then the next night he goes, "All right, so we'll have time for you to do a quick sound check. You can plug in, leave everything on, so I don't have to run out there, plug everything, then run get my guitar." I didn't have a tech on the road. And then after the first night, also Steve said, "Hey, so tomorrow, why don't you just, do you want to jam?" I'm like, "Sure." He goes, "Just leave your stuff on stage." And it was funny because I got to watch the unfolding of the tour manager, who was actually Carlos, was actually really great of understanding where how I knew Steve and stuff like that. And we became, Carlos is really cool. He goes, "Yeah, you're easy." And I really I had in-ears too. I can plug in. I didn't need the monitors. I can just listen to myself through my own wireless in-ears and stuff like that. So my job was to not cause any harm to Steve's show, which would have been really bad, and to play. And sometimes, originally it was supposed to be the minute the doors open for 30 minutes, but it became 15 minutes. And then a lot of times people would be in there and see me play, and they were like, "Oh, it's cool. I haven't seen you. I remember you from 1990 or whatever." And I have a friend that came on the road with me selling merch. And she says, people were like looking at the merch and goes, "Oh, Larry Mitchell's here?" And she goes, "Yeah, he's playing right now." And they go, "Oh, I thought that was the CD." And they go running in. And it was really a great tour for me. I got to meet a lot of people and expose my music to lots of people. So
I try to never miss the opening act because that's where I've always discovered my gems.
Yeah,
so.
cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
For everybody, this is Larry Mitchell. He's amazing. He is a Grammy Award-winning producer, songwriter, guitarist. He's incredible. I am going to be a pig and ask him to play something. I'm going to step out of the picture. Will you play something for us for a couple of minutes? All right. Just give us like 2 or 3 minutes from your current set, and then after Larry's done, we'll take you back into the studio. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Larry Mitchell.
Cool.
The End of Summer in 1996 would be one of my favorite issues of RockLove Magazine because it was in that issue that we appeared in color for the first time, only on the cover, but color nonetheless. And on that cover issue of the issue from August and September of 1996, Volume 2, Number 7 and 8, we had bands like Sponge as we did our Summerfest roundup. Sponge was one of my favorite bands of the late 1990s, especially their album Rotting Pinata, with the hit song Cloud, one of the most prolific songs of the post Nirvana era, the Rock Love Magazine era. A great band from Detroit, a great song, one that will stand the test of time. Also on that cover, we took a look back at and remembered one of our favorite bands and their album of the year, Sublime. The album that featured songs like Garden Grove, What I Got, Wrong Way, April 29th, 1992, Miami, Santeria. It's just one great song after another from the band that Bradley Nowell was the lead singer of and would soon succumb and become a member of, unfortunately, the 27 Club. Also on that magazine cover, as I had in my discussion with Jason that you just heard, one of the bands that so won me over, I couldn't get enough of them at that point, and that was Robert Smith and The Cure. And what I loved about the tour that they embarked on in 1996 and 1995, prior to that, was that wherever he was in the United States, he would come out in the local team jersey. And in this case, when I saw him in San Jose, he came out in a San Jose Sharks jersey, and what a sight to see when they come out onto the stage that way. So that'll do it for today on the Rock Love Magazine podcast, the podcast where we celebrate the zine that ran from 1995 to 2001, taking a look at the music of the times, the music that we love from history, looking at lists of some of our favorites, and certainly not forgetting the music of today, the great new finds that we discover. That'll do it for this episode of the Rock Love Magazine podcast. I'm Scott. I can't thank you enough for joining me today. We will see you next time for more remembrances, lists, and love of rock and roll.